The Ruger RXM, a product from a marriage of two American manufacturers, Sturm Ruger and Company and Magpul Industries, may just perk up a person's interest in such a firearm. If you want to learn about it and hear my viewpoint of it, stay tuned, because I am going to tell you all about one. You just might like what I present. Glock's unwillingness to dramatically change its pistol line is the exact reason why other companies are making clones. Many are even better than the original. Glock has often ignored the desires of the U.S. commercial market. I think that we could all agree on that. I have found that, regarding Glock pistols, there are three camps of people: those who love them, those that can appreciate the fact that Glock pistols are a viable tool for defensive use, among other uses, and those who simply hate them for whatever reason or reasons. I fall in the middle, and, for me, there is a love-hate relationship with them, while admitting that I have reviewed my share of them, and have carried the G48 and G23, and have a G41 with optic as a house gun. Something innovative needed to happen, both with Glock and with other manufacturers that were simply churning out masses of Glock clones for the consumer. Perhaps this marriage of two major manufacturers to produce yet another, somewhat Glock clone will help in the long run, but who knows what lies in store for this rendition. At the present time, what we do have available to us is the Ruger RXM. So, let me begin this story with the basic specifications and go from there. The virtues of the Ruger RXM has been bannered about for some time now. Most, if not all, reviews of the RXM have included comparisons between the RXM and the Generation 3 Glock G19, allegedly the foundation upon which the RXM is built. Up front, I will tell you that no comparison between the RXM and the Gen 3 Glock G19, nor comparison to other striker-fired pistols of comparable size to the RXM, will be made in this review. I wanted to evaluate the RXM on its own merits, or demerits, if applicable. What does the RXM offer? How does it handle? How does it shoot? A review without bias toward any other firearm. I think that if you were considering the purchase of an RXM, you would appreciate the honesty behind this type of review. So, let me get started, beginning first with the upper assembly, the slide. The slide, to begin with, is Ruger manufactured, and similar to those found in the striker-fired genre of pistols. The slide of the RXM is bold in its design. The muzzle end, while beveled, has a distinct straight-cut edge. A chamfered slope is present that does not reduce the slide width, but does add a nice visual effect to the slide. Beginning at the muzzle end, it blends well into the slide just at the rear of the slide lock. Deep and forward cut serrations at the muzzle end assist in getting a solid grip on the slide, should the operator want to cycle the slide. RXM is nicely cut into the slide on the left side, while the manufacturer's name and origin are nicely cut on the right side. At the rear of the slide are forward sloping serrations that are a bit longer than that found at the front end. The extractor is external, but does not pop out when a round is chambered, as with some internal extractors. Chamber checking can be performed by looking down at the top rear of the chamber, where an inspection port allows you to see if a round is chambered, or not. I'll provide you a closer look at the barrel later, but it seems that the 4-inch barrel is conventionally cut, which will make a lot of folks happy. Both the barrel and slide is finished with FNC nitride. I'll take you inside the slide later during the maintenance segment. Moving on to the sights. Both front and rear sight could be considered suppressor height, I suppose, as they are prominently high. The front sight is fastened to the slide with a single screw that makes it replaceable. I will say that the Glock front sight tool will work just fine to accommodate removal and installation. The front sight is a high-vis co-witness green tritium front sight with a white outline that is highly effective during the daytime hours, as it is during low light and nighttime environments. The rear sight, although a co-witness sight, is void of tritium dots and is more like a target sight with a simple sight channel and serrations to cut glare. Many folks like this sight arrangement, as the focus is on the front sight rather than trying to blend two different front and rear sight patterns. While the front sight is fixed, the rear sight is drift adjustable for windage. Now, whether the sight would effectively co-witness, I cannot answer. That would no doubt depend on the chosen optic, a device that is not planned to be installed on this pistol, but does lead me to the optic plate for those who do plan to run an optic. Suitable optics include those that utilize the RMR, Delta Point Pro TPP, or RMSC mounting patterns. Using an IP10 Torx Plus or a T10 Torx provided wrench, remove the two screws retaining the optic plate cover. That, after performed, reveals a series of holes that are used to mount an optic. Ruger does provide steel dowel pins that are used to properly mount optics. Optics should only be mounted if the dowel pins are installed. Failure to use the supplied dowel pins may result in damage to the firearm or optic and/or injury to the user. Should you have or are going to purchase an RCM, refer to the instruction manual for the specific optic mounting instructions. Now, let me move on to something you might be interested in, the frame. The frame is a Magpul Industries unit that incorporates some pretty good features. The frame color is of a dark gray nature and which contrasts nicely against the slide. Although I would have preferred black, dark gray is acceptable for now. More on that later. At the front end, there is a nicely blended to the slide bevel and a single point accessory rail, after which the frame gets wider. The trigger guard is nicely rounded with no front serrations, but is undercut at the rear to allow for a high hold on the handle. The slide release is wide enough to get a good hold when disassembling the pistol and has a good stiff leaf spring to hold it into place, a spring that you will see later. The slide lock is a left side only unit that is heavily serrated and is quite accessible with the shooting hand thumb if used to release the slide, although, by its nomenclature, it is not intended to release the slide from a locked back position. Fore and aft of the slide release are two pins, one with an elongated head that can be viewed on the left side of the frame, and one with a round head, as viewed from either side of the frame. These are used to remove the fire control insert, along with some other actions that must be taken and which I will present later. At the rear of the frame is a nice extension that will keep a wandering shooting hand from interfering with the slide during cycling. The grip handle itself does not have finger grooves nor grip adapters, but I was not prepared for how nice the grip feels in the hand. As mentioned earlier, the Magpul EHG, or Enhanced Handgun Grip, offers Magpul's 3/4 scale TSP texture for a secure grip without discomfort or damage to clothing during concealed carry, and textured indexing pads for consistent finger and thumb placement. I have to say that bit of marketing jargon is correct. With the flared magwell and existing grip texture, the RXM has hit a sweet spot with me regarding gripping the pistol. Grip length is adequate for my hand, with my little finger being pressed right into the flare at the bottom, rather than almost bridging the gap between the grip and magazine base. The grip's feel in the hand is very pleasurable, almost to the point of feeling, how can I define this? Well, soft to almost rubbery without feeling like rubber. Does that make any sense? My hand really feels at home with this grip. The grip's angle should feel very nice in most hands. The grip's girth allows for the shooting hand to get a full grip while there is enough surface to accommodate the palm of the support hand for a very secure hold on the pistol. I'll see how that works out during the range session. Before leaving the lower, magazine release button needs some attention. The left side only, with no provision for swapping sides, magazine button is a small but prominent button that is serrated. It falls nicely above the middle finger and below the thumb of the shooting hand. The magazine button can be reached easily with the thumb of the shooting hand without much shift in grip, at least in my hand. Someone with a short thumb or smaller hand may have to shift the grip a bit to release a magazine. Overall, the grip should be inviting to those with small or medium-sized hands. The magazine button takes little effort to push in, and when pushed, magazines fall freely as water off a duck's back. Positive magazine lockup can be expected. And if a magazine does hang up, a small cutout at the bottom rear of the grip enables an operator to grab hold of the magazine and strip it clear of the magazine well. And speaking of magazines, two 15-round PMAG magazines comes with the RXM in those states that allow more than 10 rounds to a magazine. It is claimed that any magazine for the Gen 3 G19 will work, such as the 17-round G17 Gen 3 magazine. It is also claimed that the RXM will not work properly with Gen 4 and Gen 5 magazines. You probably have noticed that I have not touched on the RXM's trigger. That's because it is part of the FCI, and that is coming up next. The Fire Control Insert, or FCI, is a Ruger-produced component that is integral with the frame. The FCI is considered as the firearm. As such, it is the serialized component. Fire control components are housed within a frame or module, and the framed-in components are removed and installed as a unit. The advantage of such a module is that the users will be able to assemble the RXM around different sized, shaped, or colored grip modules without the need for additional paperwork. That is, whenever Magpul and possibly third-party vendors gear up and make that happen. More on that later. Okay, so now we have a module and FCI. What, however, is the gain or loss of having such? What essentially this comes down to is trigger response. So, I'll let you in on that. Brand new and out of the box, I came up with a 5-pound, 5.8 ounce trigger pull weight with a 5-pull average. I am not impressed so far. Getting on with the trigger's dynamics, I like the fact that the RXM's trigger is a flat-faced affair with a center safety lever that prevents the trigger from moving into the frame unless pressed with the trigger. There is a slight amount of free play until resistance is felt. From that point, the trigger stacks heavily until you feel a point where the trigger is just about to release the striker, and then there is a quick break when the striker releases. There is absolutely no overtravel. There is, however, what I consider a long reset, at least longer than I expected. Now, that's not saying that after the RXM has been fired for a while, that the trigger will not get better. I am sure that it will. But with the FCI being serialized, can it be improved with more precise components? I hope that it can, because the RXM is one pistol that can use a better trigger. As far as a trigger to be pulled for defensive use, the trigger of the RXM will take care of business. And if I were to carry the RXM, I would be spending a lot of range time with it. Okay, enough has been said here. Let me take you into the maintenance of the RXM, and I will keep it as short as possible so that I can move on to the important part, how it performs. Disassembling the RXM, as with reassembling, is pretty simple. After ensuring that the RXM is safe, the slide is allowed to go forward without a magazine installed. Trigger is pulled, the slide release is pulled down, and the slide separated from the frame. Remove the captivated recoil spring and guide, and then remove the barrel. The RXM is now ready for cleaning, inspection, lubrication, reassembly, and function testing, which I am not going to waste your time here with, but will simply mention that you should refer to the instruction manual for proper procedures when performing such. Let's take a quick look at the inside of the RXM. Machine work on the RXM slide is excellent and should convey that Ruger was not cutting corners. The frame's interior houses the FCI. While I am not going to explain how to remove and install the FCI for maintenance purposes, I'll just say that the removal of 2 pins and the slide release bar is necessary to remove the FCI. And again, I refer you to the instruction manual for specific instructions on how to do so. Now, let's get to the range and get the first range day with the RXM out of the way. This would be the first outing for the Ruger RXM, at least in my hands. The 2 15-round magazines that came with the pistol have been stoked to the top and left to set up overnight. Fiocchi 115 grain FMJ and Magtech 115 gray FMJ would provide the source of enjoyment for this first outing. The 15-round magazines allow me to run 5 sets of 3 rounds each for my favorite failure drill, or the Mozambique drill, as some call it. I may just mix things up a bit, just to keep you and I from getting bored. Now, I need for you to note that this RXM does not have an optic, nor a light, laser, or a combination thereof, because I need to see what a box stock RXM is capable of when using the standard sights, standard trigger, and provided magazines. In short, the RXM is running as it would straight out of the box, although it has been properly lubricated. I'll provide comments as I roll through the session and a brief range synopsis at the end of the session. The Ruger RXM ran without fail, more than I can say for the person operating it. That would be me. For my first time with the Ruger RXM, I was impressed, but not surprised, as I have known Ruger to do right by the majority of his firearms. I needed this range session to be as short as possible, given the length of this review, and I may have rushed things a bit too fast. I was using a flash sight picture as I would in an actual confrontation, and I probably should have measured my shots better for better accuracy, but I did satisfy myself as to the relative combat accuracy of the RXM, and I liked what I saw. The Tragicon front sight really stands out for me to see, even with my old eyes. I would prefer some sort of guide on the rear sight though, but for a sighting system worthy of having, the sights on the Ruger RXM are more than adequate. The two provided Magpul magazines work flawlessly, are easy to load, easy to insert into the RXM, and are easy to vacate the pistol when directed. The grip size, angle, and texture felt very good in my hand, and there is more than enough real estate to get a good grip on it. The trigger action is a bit soft until the time the striker releases, but it is not unlike many other triggers that I have pulled. To me, it was predictable and consistent, which is a good trait to have in a trigger. This was my first time with the RXM, and I did pull some shots, with the majority, however, falling into place pretty close to my point of aim, but slightly left, but that could have been me. The RXM likes a covered sight picture over a 6 o'clock hold. I needed to raise the sight with headshots though, as they were hitting effectively, but again, left to my POI. Regardless, all would have been effective. All in all, I am pleased with the first outing with the RXM. It has the potential to be a viable pistol for personal or home defense, in my opinion. Longevity, I can't speak to, but reliability, I can. And from what I can determine, the RXM is highly reliable. More can be told with another range session and working with some defensive ammunition. That review will be coming out soon. In providing my final thoughts regarding the Ruger RXM, let me first review the many features the RXM has to offer. The RXM has a removable serialized stainless steel fire control insert, the FCU, set inside an interchangeable Magpul Enhanced Handgun Grip, or EHG, for maximum flexibility and customization. The Magpul EHG offers premium features, including Magpul 3/4 scale TSP texturing for a secure grip without discomfort or damage to clothing during concealed carry. The EHG also offers textured indexing pads for consistent finger and thumb placement. Other EHG features include a low profile, a flared magazine well for quick and easy magazine insertion, a trigger guard undercut, and beaver tail that promote a high grip for better control, a magazine release scallop for easy access, a universal pattern accessory rail for use with a variety of lights and lasers, an extended magazine release, and raised slide stop. The slide allows for direct optic mounting of RMR, Delta Point Pro, DPP, and RMSC pattern optics. Co-witness height steel sights featuring a tritium night front sight, providing an excellent sight picture with or without an optic installed. A striker fired with flat face trigger, smooth trigger pulls, and tactile reset. More on the trigger later. Precision rifled alloy steel barrel with FNC nitride finish. Safety features include an integrated trigger safety, internal striker blocker, and inspection port, that allows for visual confirmation of a loaded or empty chamber. I rarely use this feature. I consider any pistol loaded, should the slide be in battery, and until I can confirm that it is not loaded. 2 Magpul PMag 15 GL9 15-round magazines are included, but the RCM will run with standard Glock magazines, if they are Gen 3. A nice co-branded plastic carry case that is lockable houses the RXM and associated goodies like a chamber flag, instruction manual, registration card, and a 3-part decal. My perception of the RXM is that it is meant for everyday carry. It projects the robust qualities that Ruger is known for at a price many will find affordable. It is a movement forward with a modular concept that many find enticing, as one fire control module can be used with varying sizes of polymer pistol lowers that, hopefully, Magpul will be able to provide. I see an effort by both Ruger and Magpul, with their investment in the RXM, to make the RXM into a popular choice for striker-fired pistoleros to invest in for everyday carry options, and it just may be a solid choice for you. Although the trigger, which I harped on a bit, is more than sufficient for defensive use, I would like to feel a more responsive trigger in future production models. And being that the FCI is a serialized part of the firearm, improvements will only fall to the manufacturer, Sturm Ruger & Company. That said, there may be FCI components available from third parties that will improve upon the trigger's performance. At this point, that is going to be a wait-and-see speculation. Well, I am happy that you stayed with me. I have plenty more reviews in the to be decided section of my brain, and I hope that you will return to view them when they are published. Until our paths cross again, take care of yourself and stay vigilant, armed, and safe in your journeys.